Hi, this is Graham Fife from Happy Digital. A lot of people asked, why does autograss look dark sometimes? Well, this is caused by the color settings in 3ds Max and V-Ray. So in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to set those up properly. So here's a simple scene where I've just put a plane, a staircase, and a teapot, and I've left all of the color settings at their defaults. Now if I do a render with V-Ray, it looks alright, but the lighting is not very interesting. So I'm going to put in a V-Ray sun and sky. So let's go to the lights, and pick V-Ray, V-Ray sun, and I'm going to put a V-Ray sun pointing almost straight down here. So it's like noon. And I'm going to pick, yes, I want a V-Ray sky. And now let's take a quick render at that, and whoa, it's crazy bright. So why is it crazy bright? Well, the V-Ray sun and sky system is calibrated to work with the V-Ray cameras. So I've got a default V-Ray camera in my scene here, just a V-Ray physical camera. We can see the parameters here. Do a render again. Alright, now things are back into our dynamic range, but the colors all look funny. Now why is that? First of all, we have vignetting. So let's turn that off. So that looks a little better, but the shadow is completely dark. So let's throw on some GI. I'm just going to go to V-Ray, turn on indirect illumination, throw it over to brute force, and let's just render that. Things got a lot brighter now, and the color is more neutral, because now the sky is casting light onto the scene as well as the sun. But something is still a little bit funny. The shadows are very dark. Unnaturally dark. This has to do with the gamma correction. If I open up my materials, you'll also notice that the shading on the material swatches also appear very dark. This is due to the gamma settings, which by default are set to linear gamma. Max has a nice way to adjust the gamma settings. You go to Customize, Preferences, and enable gamma and LUT correction. And I like to click this load enable state with max files so that gamma correction stays in the scene file, so I don't have to keep turning this on every time I start max. The other thing to do is to turn on checkboxes for effect color selectors and effect material editor, and also bitmap files input and output. Set everything to 2.2 and set the gamma to 2.2 if it's not already 2.2. That's because most monitors are set to a 2.2 gamma. So now all the swatches are realistically shaded. So the gamma is correct. It doesn't look crunched anymore. If I go back to my render, see what happens is everything got brighter. So there's good news and bad news. The good news is the shadows are not crunched anymore. The bad news is it's way too bright. Now this is because of the default settings in the V-Ray camera. Now photographers have a rule of thumb that if you're shooting photos in the middle of the day, like at noon, which is how our sun and sky is set right now, you want to set your f-stop to 16. So enter f number 16. And set your shutter speed and ISO to the same value. So if you want to shoot shutter speed 200, switch your ISO to 200. Let's render that again, and now we have a pretty well exposed image for daylight. Now I'm going to throw some grass onto the plane here. So I'll go to Primitives, V-Ray, Autograss, and hit render again. Alright, I've just skipped ahead to the end of the render, and you can see since we've got our lighting set up to a physically based V-Ray sun and sky system at noon, with a V-Ray physical camera using the Sunny 16 rule of thumb to get a nice exposure, then the autograss that we put on there renders with a very natural green grass color. If you start a scene using all of the default color settings in V-Ray or Max, then you get into a situation where your gamma is off and the shading will be off, and then you end up adjusting lights or adjusting camera exposure to make up for it. And what happens is physically based materials like V-Ray sun and sky or autograss will come out looking the wrong color. So a nice thing you can do once you get your color settings into a nice place is you can go back to the V-Ray menu, click on presets, and hit save preset, and you can save out a preset, or you can even go to the common tab go to the bottom with the sign renderer and click Save as Defaults. Now every time you start a new scene, you'll have these settings, and you won't have to remember to adjust all those gamma buttons and so on. Now just for fun, I'm going to select my autograss again, throw an earth material onto the ground, so I'll pick dry fine earth, and I'm going to choose a fancier grass material. I'm going to pick bluegrass high quality tips, and do another render. There, I've just skipped ahead to the end of the render again. You can see with the ground material applied, the lawn looks soft and lush. There's one other thing you'll need to know. If you're using V-Ray's built-in frame buffer, which I can turn on using the V-Ray frame buffer tab, and then you do a render, it's going to look too dark again, unless you click this little sRGB button, and then everything is back to normal. I highly recommend that you use this gamma and color setup so that all your renders look natural, but if you're using some other setup for whatever reason, it's possible to adjust the autograss default materials. All of the autograss materials are stored in a file called autograssmaterials.mat, which is stored in the V-Ray plugins folder. You can load that into the material editor and change the materials. Be sure to make a backup copy of this file if you plan on editing the materials. If you only want to modify the grass material in your current scene, you can go to the material editor and get the material from the scene off of autograss. Once again, this allows you to edit the material just like any other Max material. Another thing that can affect the color of the grass is the location of the sunlight. So with the sun pointing straight down at noon, the grass actually looks kind of a dark, rich green color. We can get a different look to the grass by moving the sun. So I'll select the sun and I'm going to move it so that the sunlight is coming in from more of an angle. And let's do another render and see what the difference is. I skipped ahead to the end of the render, and you can see the grass got brighter and more dramatic looking because it's lit from an angle, so there's more shading within the grass. And the other objects got darker because the sun is at more of an angle. So the overall effect is that the dynamic range is more balanced across your scene. So there you have it. Proper gamma and color settings will help your renders look more lifelike and inviting.